That's it. There is no fresh fruit and vegetables that we can readily go down the street and get. It takes us anywhere from 15 to 20 minutes off. It depends on whether you want to go to Carlisle North or you want to go to Weaver Street Road, or you want to go to Carver on Greensburg Street. It all depends on which direction you want to go. And so it takes us that those are the routes we have to take if we want to go to the store just to get a loaf of bread and a gallon of milk and fresh vegetables and fruit. I'll say this and then I'll wait for another question. We had a garden at Faith Tabernacle Ways of the Love Church, a big garden that provided fresh vegetables and everything. But then when the buzzards started flying over, when the buzzards started roosting over the power lines and everything, their feces, we could not give those veggies away. So we did away with the garden and built another garden somewhere else. And so those are the type of things that we deal with. But since we closed the landfill, every now and then you might see 10 buses. But prior to that, we had flocks of birds. We had over 200 some buses. They roosted in the trees and they multiplied in the trees. We had seagulls all the way from the East Coast, all the way down to the coast, coming over here and using that as a food source. And so once the aroma gets in the air, they call it aroma. Once it gets in the air, it's almost like a beacon. It brings them to a new food source. So those are just some of the things that we dealt with. We had, I said I wouldn't say anything else, but we had, as they changed the way they operate the landfill, on Wednesday, they would close the landfill, and they used to close it early or during the other days. We identified 43 illegal dump sites. And out of those 43 dump sites, we partnered up with Orange County Solid Waste, and we have what's called Community Cleanup Day. We was able to get 65 tons of waste out of those 43 sites. Everything from building supplies, construction waste, and electronic device, all that was just laying out in these illegal dump sites. One of the dump sites that we could not, and they would not let us touch, after they got people from the Department of Environmental and Natural Resources to come out and look at it, they told the county that it was hazardous. But nobody determined it as a brownfield. If they determined it as a brownfield, we can get money from the EPA and clean it up. But the way it is now, we can't even touch it. We can't even put a shovel in the ground. We'll be in violation. So those are the things that we're living with a hazardous waste site that is set in the tributary that feeds into Bowling Creek. And they're wondering, why is it contaminated? But they don't understand that the water that comes out of Bowling Creek goes into Morgan Creek. Morgan Creek goes into the University Lake. And out of that, Morgan Creek even goes into Jordan Lake. And they wonder why Jordan Lake is being contaminated. Do I need to say more? And that's just part of the Roger Road story. Yes, Sam.
I'm really interested in programs that help build community and getting community feedback about resources that they need. So could you talk a little bit more about the successes of the community center and what need it's fulfilling and what maybe programming it does that the neighbors in the neighborhood really like, stuff like that.
The Roger Road Community Center is a jewel. We're able to provide an after-school program on a regular basis to almost 35 kids. Our summer enrichment camp that reaches beyond the classroom. and we turn the environment into a classroom. We work with solar projects. We work with water projects. We helped him to apply language art and math to all the projects we do. We had a project we call From the Seed to the Table. They actually plant seeds in the garden, what they like to eat, and we show them how to prepare it, and we serve it. And it's a story that we tell sometimes, especially when the broccoli started growing. And it's like, this is broccoli. She said, no, this is not broccoli. My mom get the broccoli out of the freezer part at the store. This is not broccoli. So we cut some of it off, sauteed it a little bit, and some that we didn't, and we washed it real good and said, taste this. And they said, oh, they're going to be lucky. But they couldn't find out it wasn't. And so it's those type of things the type of projects we do. And we got a program now they call Project We Should Read. And what they do, they goes on a site. We had partnered with Mr. Bale that work with the Chapel Hill Public School System. And you can go on the computer and you can start off reading a few words. And as you begin to develop your vocabulary, you begin to read more. And what this program does, it actually it programs your progress. And at first it's like, we're not going to get a lot, But the lab is full. We got 12 computers in there, and so we do 2 sessions a day with 2 different groups of kids. And those are the things we try to, and I think we're doing a pretty good job of doing. We just need more volunteers. We're trying to figure how do we fill in the gap when we take spring break and when summer break comes along. We have been able to get some funding. We were able to, for the past 2 years, we were able to hire some teacher aides and teachers. We have a teacher that lives in the community that has worked in the Chapel Hill school system for 30 years. She came out and she developed this curriculum that we use in the summertime for our young people, but we also use it in our after-school program. So we wanted our after-school program to be almost like a year-round. So when you take that break in the summertime, you come back in the summer, and you be a part of that enrichment class, because we know of all the information that comes out, when the kids go out for school, they lose anywhere from 1/3 to 2/3 of what they did learn when they was in school because they're not picking up those books. Last year, we carried 45 kids to the Chapel Hill Public Library. 35 of them have never ever had a library card. Out of that, 27 of them, I think it was 27 of them, had never been to the Chapel Hill Library. Those are the type of enhancement that we work to make those changes. That will be something that they can carry with them for the rest of their life. Give them the opportunity. Yes.
Do you are y'all building any partnerships with other neighboring communities that have a high population of African American, like Durham, in particular like East Durham, or the area around the downtown area?
The only partnership we do with Durham is that they have come in and they have done some workshops. As far as volunteer, they have the same. It's the distance they have to travel, and the paperwork they have to go through in order to do that. But we're partnered up with the Jackson Center. We're working together well and doing more research. And the good thing about that is, the good thing about that is the Jackson Center is actually in Chapel Hill. The Mary Chief Jackson Center over there by St. Joseph, they're in Chapel Hill. So they were able to get some of the Chapel Hill money to actually pay some interns to work at the Roger Road Community Center because of their partnership. Sometimes it's like it takes collaboration to agree to work together to bring forth changes that enhance the whole community. We tell them, let's stop talking about Pine Knolls and Northside. Let's talk about the region. Pine Knolls, Northside, Rogers Road, and Orange County. Because we're all running in the same thing. And the good thing is out of there, I got to tell this because it's great. Mr. David Caldwell, who had been a volunteer in the Rogers Road Community Center for years. And the promise that was made about the basic amenities was made to his father in his backyard. Now he is the Orange County coordinator for recreational facilities. They want him to duplicate what we done at Rogers Road in Effingham Chief and Cedar Road. So he gets to oversee it. One of the things that we have said from the beginning, in order for a change to occur, you've got to be willing to become part of the people who make the decision about change. So that's where he's at. And he comes out and he helps oversee the things that we do. And everybody still works well together. And we just want to try to make sure that that question that you asked about community working with each other is very important. Very important. And so we're always open to collaboration. We're always open to hear suggestions. How can we make and improve community in which we live? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I am really interested in kind of the connection between government and communities, like that you guys were able to come together and explain what was going on and do the testing and have these partnerships that give you kind of power to talk to these people and say, this is wrong and it's real and we need you to do something about it. So I guess my question is, besides the jurisdiction issues, what do you think was the hardest challenge in communicating with the government and getting people to act on what you needed to be done?
Well, the hardest thing was for them to believe what was happening to us was happening. Like I said earlier, some of the politicians have never ever been out to Rogers Road to ask us, where is the landfill? Like, wait a minute. You made a decision to put a waste transfer station on top of a sinking landfill, and you don't know where it's at. So it's about how do we humble ourselves and kept educating. 2007, we filed a Title VI with the Justice Department. And when the municipality found out about it, because each one of them had to be contacted because they was the one that the complaint was in. All of a sudden, we can't talk to y'all no more. He said, we can't talk to y'all no more because you got a lawsuit against us. No, we have not filed a lawsuit yet. We just got a Title VI complaint against you. So they can look at what we have been alleged to come to find out that, yeah, it's true. And while we were sitting there at that same meeting, somebody comes up and they give us this vanilla envelope. I said, what could this be? Somebody gave us some money. So I opened it up, and here's this report from the North Carolina National Environmental Resource Department, where they had just made an agreement with the solid waste facility. They had very high level of benzene and arsenic in the test wells around that site. So, ooh, my goodness. But they said that there was that this stuff wasn't part of it. They disputed our water test. But here it is, right here. And so those are the kind of things, you know. How do we go about making those changes? And it was about science. To relay the information so that the politician could understand what we were talking about. Yeah. So what's in your water? We don't know what's in our water, but we know it don't smell right, and it don't taste good, and I can't wash my clothes in it. So trying to be a smart person. Started talking to we met Steve Wing and Chris Heaney at the North Carolina Environmental Justice Network. And we started hanging out with those guys. Started listening to what they were talking about. Said, come out to Rogers Road, help us figure out what's going on. Did our water test, so we got to find out. Yeah, the water's contaminated. So we go back and say, well, what you say is in your water? Well, we got E. coli in our water. We got benzene. And so how do you know that? Professor Heaney, where do you find out about the Clean Air Act and the Water Act? Oh, we did learn to read, but Professor Wing, and so they began to look at us different. They began to hear us, and in a way that before when you came in like, and then when you get through talking, then they raise a big head. But now we got this attention because the science was speaking. Every report that we gave them a copy of it, certified by the labs, so they could not deny the information. And so it's the science that have to help the resident to make those changes. It's the science that got to convince them to hold these conversations and come up with resolve for the issues within our community.
Where's Senator Price's office in all this?
Outside the bubble. His district just to incorporate part of the area in which I live. And I've had a conversation with them, but they have not generated any money. Most of the money that his office had been able to generate was able to help put sewage line up in Effingham and also run the sewage line to Buckhorn up in the Orange County Park. And it also helped out one of our other neighborhoods in North Carolina that was in his district. When it come out to actually support, he's a great support. But as far as being able to allocate that money to actually help what we need help with, he has not been able to get across those hurdles yet. But he's still working on it. I still try to send him a message every month.
What kind of volunteers do you need?
Well, volunteers, that one of the things that is dear to our heart is volunteers that be willing to work with our young people. We need the science. Do we need to do another water test? Do we need to do some more tests on the soils around the neighborhood? One of the things that we were trying to do is, that's a lot of money. Health impact study. Look at the information that comes out of the homes. What did your child die of? And like we do know that one family actually had 5 of his siblings to actually die of cancer. I think the last one that just passed He was 68. His brother that is still alive is 59. The sister and 3 other brothers have also passed away, but they passed away at an early age. The 93-year-old lady that I was talking about lost 2 sons to cancer. And we have a lot of kidney failure within in the community. And so, basically, the science and also to help our young people with academics. One of the things that we have been also trying to combat was the inequity within our learning institutions in the Jefferson Carver school system. So a lot of the after-school program that is actually trying to help bring new changes runs into the same thing that we're running into on Rogers Road. In the summertime and spring break, we just don't have the staff to work with all the kids. So it's not that there's a downtime. We work with them in a larger group, which sometimes is hard to do the one-on-one for the ones that need it. We try to work most of the problems on our board so everybody can see it rather than trying to work it on individual papers. And so it is that what we need, the volunteers, even to the point that to save money that we don't have, that we prepare most of the stacks for our young people. We don't give them the granola bars and these fruit bars because of the sodium that is in it. We try to give them things and introduce them to things like carrots, celery, cucumbers, oranges, and apples, and also make the sandwiches where it does not have a whole lot of sodium in it, with additives in it. So we look to do some health workshops. Every now and then we team up with Piedmont Health, and we do some health workshops. But if there are any among us that is actually with the School of Public Health, with the nursing school, how to do these workshops, to assist us to do these workshops, because we are not only reaching out to the young people, but we're reaching out to their parents as well, so they can extend what we are passing on to the young people at our facilities.
Well, maybe we can put a sign-up sheet. I'm sorry, I was going to say maybe we can put a sign-up sheet here.
For volunteers.
So, yeah, for people who are interested, and they can put their email in, would it be good?
I was just going to ask, so we're talking a lot about community as in, like within the Jacksonville area, but I'm sure everyone is aware of like the Flint, Michigan water crisis. So how does that crisis resonate with the Rogers Road community? Because I'm sure it kind of unveils how those are very targeted communities.
I'm quite sure you've been in North Carolina long enough now to hear some of our governor's commercials about clean water in North Carolina. If you need your water tested, contact blah blah blah, and they will do it. But he did not tell you that to test for biological and organic and chemicals. If you do those together, you're looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of $220, and it might even be more just to do the 4 samples. And so we tell people that in North Carolina, except around the coal ash ponds, collectively, if you look at how the landfill of contaminated water in Greensboro, Roxbury, Nashville, Nash County, up in Rocky Mount, collectively, our contamination when it comes to water is far greater than Flint, Michigan. The only problem is that Flint, Michigan is compound in one area. That's what they're telling you now. Because there were other water sources that was actually connected to that source. Now, to say that, we have to hold some of the health departments because they order test water over a period of time to make sure that these type of things are not happening. And because of underfunding, they don't have the people to go out into the fields and really do it. We know that when we began to talk about the different things that was in our water, they came out and they began to do some tests. And they found the MTBE that was in almost 2/3 of the well water that was out there. Because MTBE is an additive they add to gasoline to make it burn cleaner, but it causes cancer. And at first they said, well, we got to find that service station that got this leaking tank in your neighborhood. It's like, where did they put a service station in Rogers Road? There's never ever been a service station in Rogers Road. The closest service station is about 2.25 miles away on Martin Luther King Boulevard. And so when they understood that after they sent some people out in the field looking for this service station they couldn't find, the other answer to the contamination was that somebody was cutting grass and they knocked over some gas. He said, now, wait a minute. According to your test of the wells, and we know that the water level runs in different levels, but that gas had to run downhill. It had to go around Sandburg Lane and come back up behind Rush Road because all those houses were where the contamination was. One gallon contaminated all the wells. And then they found out that when Habitat built the development on Rush Road, it actually prolonged the life of one of the residents because their well had more MTB in arsenic than all of them combined. So they got connected to the water line because the water line and the sewage line came right down the middle of the road in front of their house.
So if citizens were able to test their water and find that their specific well is contaminated, how many do you think have the ability to connect to municipal water like that example?
Well, I would say right now, none of them have the ability to do it. And I say that because the water lines, as I said, when they ran the water line, they ran the water lines through the woods and behind people's houses through the woods. Not down where most places the water line runs down the side of the street, sewer line runs down the middle of the street. This case, it went through the woods just like Red Riding Hood was going to Grandma's house. That's the way we sometimes describe it. Well, we're in the process now. We're involved in a task force that is looking at how the county could actually pay to connect the remaining houses that are not connected and connect those that need sewage lines.
How many houses did you say?
Right now, there's about 65 houses that need to be connected to sewage line, and about another 37 that need to be and that could rise. One of the things they're talking about, and And we have experienced it. When you start talking about electric and water authorities, it is an entity that is put together that have total power. You can't tell them what to regulate the rates. And we ran into this in Rocky Mountain. That on one side of Jones Street, the resident is on the power authority line, and their electric bill ended up being more than their mortgage. And so they ran into a situation where either they're going to go without their medicine, they're going to go without their food to make sure that there's water bill, the electric bill, and all those things are paid. And so those are the type of things that we have to look at the policies. Anybody that works in the department or going to school for governmental policies and things like that, we can definitely use you out there. Because, we need to look at the way they put these policies together. We need to look at this interlocal agreement that they put together that created the boundaries that we cannot bring water and sewage in this community not unless you got a special use permit. Nobody gets a special use permit not unless they can afford to build some developments. They're going to recoup that money that they put into those special use permits. And so it's those type of things. And then we are the whole in a donut. All the development comes around us, and it goes on the backside of that bubble, but it does not come inside, provide any amenity for us. We say that we are governed and we are taxed without representation. Another fact I'd like to throw out there when it comes to the Caldwell family. Between their father and the 4 sons, they had put in somewhere in the neighborhood of 80 plus years in the military. All of them ended up in law enforcement, and each one of them put 30 years in. There is no other community in Orange County that have more veterans that lives in it. Miss Gertrude Nunn's husband was actually one of the infantry that was stationed when they did the testing for the bomb that was dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. He came out. He got to see his last child born, and he died. And they believe he had cancer. But is that where it started? Because he had 2 sons that have passed away from cancer. And the one thing too, all of it is not just the contamination that's coming from the landfill. Duke Power used to do what they call air spray. So they would come over the community and they would spray the foliage. So the railroad would come down the railroad track with one of their utility vehicles, and they also sprayed foliage. So she would call in between the landfill, Duke Power spraying, and Southern Railroad. All those contaminants right there in her front yard, in her backyard. And her rail was closer to the landfill than the railroad track. So there's a lot when it comes to facilities like these. Where are they basically put? They are put in low-income communities or community of color that have the least finance to fight these issues. We had an issue here in North Carolina where Southern Railroad was going to build this big depot, and people who have been living on their land, and their ancestors have been living there for over 150 years, were getting ready to get pushed off until other people came and rallied with us to say no. So they decided, well, we get too much pushback here, so we're not going to do it. But that's what it's going to take. Everybody coming out of their comfort zone when they know that there is evidence that there is something that's wrong. We cannot be what we call curtain people. That when people are behind the blind, we see it going on, but I'm not going to say nothing. It's not in my backyard. But if that tanker on that train overturns, and the chemicals that's on there get out in the open air, it has no boundaries. You might not see it coming, but those are the possibilities. Even to the point that we had to tell, like, we know that the garbage truck is using Rogers Road, and over half of the trash that is laying on the side of Rogers Road is coming out of the top of those trucks. So they made them just go down 086 and do 86 and come on both ends of Eubanks. They're doing a little bit better now because the school is down on one end, and we have Lawrence Road, we have Chapel Hill High, we have Smith Middle School, and Sewell Elementary. All those schools are within that 1.5-mile radius. So they had to begin to think about the health of the children. And one of the other things that we found out too, that when we did our water sample, they said, okay, we need to do a clean water sample. So we go inside Morgan Grove School and get some water sample. And oh man, what is this? Sediments in the water. And a low dose of E. coli bacteria. And then when they found that out, they knew this 2 months before we took the test. And some of the parents was not aware. So these are the type of things that is not cloak and dagger, but it's a necessity to police those that supposed to have our best interest at heart. Sometimes we have to do that.
Can I ask one last question, because I know we have to wrap up. Has there ever been kind of a drive to provide home test kits for people in the area where, say, if we wanted to do something like that, that would give people in their homes a way to help build up whatever kind of evidence that you need to provide to folks who might have the ability to take it to the next level?
We did a water sample test of some of the neighborhoods, but not all of them, in that research that we done.
Right.
And it was one of those things that we wanted to do. We even partnered with Healthy Home for North Carolina. But basically, what they was doing, they were looking for lead, but not the water samples.
But they did the testing themselves, or they let the folks that live in the homes do the testing?
We trained them to do the water samples themselves. They ran the water, they labeled them all, put the date on them, and they gave it to us. We packed it in ice, and we get it to the labs. But it is something that is a resource that we want to do. We want to see the difference to see if those that do get connected to municipal water, what is the change that will occur after that happens? Is the water sample, is the water better? We know it's going to get better, but at what standard? And so we would welcome another round of water sample.
think that draws our discussion series for today to a close. Thank you so much for coming. We're going to have a volunteer sheet or like a contact sheet set up over there. So if you're interested in kind of getting in contact with the Rogersville community, there's a sheet over there. You can put your name and email, and I'm sure you can talk to him, get some contact information to start working this community. Thank you for having
Everybody encouraged.